Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got an incredible news story to share, so let's dive in. It was a painfully sad day for me, a Friday I'll never forget. Within minutes, I would find out if my life had spiraled into chaos completely beyond my control. At that moment, all I could do was wait and see if the disaster I feared would truly unfold. But I'm no helpless fool who sits around feeling sorry for himself. No way. I've always lived by something my old sergeant drilled into me long ago. Action is the best defense. My only choice was to stand my ground and fight to protect my honor, even if everything else crumbled to pieces. Luckily, I had a small advantage. Yesterday, I received some crucial information that gave me just enough time to prepare for what was coming. That's why I was sitting in a friend's black Peugeot 307, parked discreetly in the corner of a motel parking lot. I had been told my wife would be here after lunch. My heart raced as I waited, watching the lot for her familiar red Toyota Yaris. And then she arrived. Moments later, another car pulled in, a sleek, expensive BMW. Her real man had arrived. He parked next to her, exchanged a few words, and headed inside toward the registration office. This was it. I stepped out of my car and approached Rebecca's Toyota. The passenger door was unlocked, so I opened it, slid into the seat, and closed the door behind me. Her face was a mix of shock and panic. "Billy, what the hell are you doing here?" she yelled. I handed her a brown envelope, my voice calm but firm. "Not much, Rebecca. Just dropping off the divorce papers from my cheating, soon-to-be ex-wife. Enjoy screwing your real man, and feel free to stay here forever. Your noble real man. Feel free to stay with him forever," I said coldly. Rebecca erupted, screaming, "No, no, no. You're totally wrong. It's not what you think. Let me explain why I'm here. I promise. It's not for cheating. But I wasn't having it. I've already decided. I'm done, Rebecca. Divorce it is. I couldn't care less if you're screwing that worm who just ran off to grab the room key for your little love nest. Be his problem now," I said, my voice sharp with finality. Her sobs grew louder. It was clear she had imagined this afternoon as something romantic, some kind of dreamy getaway with her obviously horny lover. That dream was quickly unraveling. As if on cue, the so-called real man returned, swaggering toward the car while waving the room key. His smugness evaporated when he spotted Rebecca sobbing in the driver's seat. Confused, he opened her door and snapped, "Who the hell is this guy? And what did he do to you?" While he was trying to piece things together, I stepped out of the car. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out a small plastic bottle. As I approached, Rebecca sobbed out, "He's my husband. And now we're both going to get divorced because of this." The lover scowled, puffing out his chest. "I'll beat that stupid idea out of you, you creep," he snarled, stepping toward me. Big mistake. Before he could land a finger on me, I aimed the bottle at his face and squeezed hard. A sharp stream of water mixed with shampoo shot out, hitting him directly in the eyes. He screamed in pain, blinded and thrashing, as the stinging liquid did its job. While he was temporarily out of commission, the scene descended further into chaos, and I knew I had made my point. It was time for my second weapon, a dart with 3 sharp flukes soldered to its head. Without hesitation, I took a quick step, moved behind him, and swung hard with my right hand. The dart pierced through his pants and underwear, embedding itself deep into his left buttock. The barbed tip ensured it was firmly lodged. Removal would require surgery. My mission was complete. The scene was almost comical now. Him stumbling around with shampoo stinging his eyes, cursing like an old harbor worker, and a dart stuck in his rear. Meanwhile, my cheating wife sat in her car, crying loudly and helplessly. Without wasting another moment, I rushed to my car and drove away from the motel parking lot. One thing was certain. Whatever plans those two had for a romantic afternoon were well and truly ruined. Now, let me introduce myself properly. My name is Billy Spinson. a 37-year-old Scandinavian guy. I'm currently married to Rebecca, who is 36. We've been together for 11 years, married for 10, and have 2 children. Emile, 9, and Estelle, 7. On paper, we have everything a couple could want: kids, stability, and a comfortable life. But, sadly, happiness is another story. And, in my humble opinion, much of our unhappiness can be traced back to Rebecca's mother, a woman who, while not literally green-tailed or fire-breathing, has earned the title of dragon in every other way. From the moment we met, she made it her mission to make my life as miserable as possible. The first time I encountered her was at a dinner at Rebecca's home. What I expected to be a warm family meal turned into an interrogation. After a barrage of probing questions, the dragon concluded, "I don't like your name. Billy is a Y name, and people with Y names are not respectable. Upper-class families never name their children things like Billy, Kenny, Ronnie, or Molly." I couldn't believe my ears. What shocked me more was that both Rebecca and her spineless father remained silent, while I was being openly humiliated. She wasn't done. And Spin Son? That's a typical farmhand name from back, when sons took their father's first name and added son to it. Frankly, I expected better for Rebecca. Nellie, after all, is marrying a fine man from a noble family. I'd had enough. I stood up and said, "Isn't Nellie's fiancé the one whose father is some scandal-ridden distant branch of that family? And isn't he just an unemployed leech on the welfare system?" Before anyone could react, I added, "I need some fresh air. Rebecca, are you coming with me?" And so, we left what I could only describe as a dragon's nest. I knew Nellie's boyfriend, Alexander, from my school days, and wasn't at all surprised that, with his cunning charm, he had managed to convince Rebecca's eccentric mother to see him as some kind of God's gift to Nellie. But honestly, that wasn't my concern, nor did I care. Unsurprisingly, I wasn't invited to Nellie and Alexander's grand wedding, and frankly, I couldn't have cared less. What truly mattered to me was Rebecca and our relationship, which only seemed to strengthen and grow. But then, it grew too good. Rebecca ended up unexpectedly pregnant, and that was enough to make her dragon mother nearly explode with rage. She called me, her voice shaking with fury, to let me know just what kind of scumbag I was in her and other decent people's eyes. She also made it clear that no wedding, at least not on her dime, would ever happen. With her mother's approval far from our priority, Rebecca and I decided to take matters into our own hands. We flew to the beautiful Cristiano Scandinavian church on Tenerife, a stunning spot in the Spanish Canary Islands that's perfect for small, intimate weddings. With our best friend by our side, we got married there. It was simple, romantic, and entirely ours. Afterward, life began to fall into place. Rebecca and I both found great jobs in a town 210 kilometers away from our hometown, which turned out to be a blessing. The distance kept us away from her mother's meddling, as she focused all her time, money, and attention on Nellie and Alexander. The next several years were good to us. We had 2 wonderful children, made a decent living, bought a lovely home, and built a circle of friends in our new town. Even our sex life remained healthy. Best of all, the distance meant I rarely had to deal with Rebecca's family. Her parents never visited us, and whenever we returned to our hometown, I spent time with my family while Rebecca visited hers. Eventually, even Alexander reached his breaking point with the dragon. To everyone's surprise, he had done well in his career and secured a promotion that required relocating 280 kilometers away. After some heated arguments with Nellie, he gave her an ultimatum: move with him or face divorce. Begrudgingly, she chose to follow him to his new job. And just like that, the dragon turned her attention back to Rebecca. Of course, I wasn't the type to quietly take all her criticism. I made sure to voice my opinions too, which only added to our problems. One evening, after the kids were asleep, Rebecca said, "I really wish you could be more like my co-worker." I snapped, "If you're so in love with that con man, why don't you file for divorce and go be with him?" But as long as we're married, I won't tolerate cheating. If you ever go behind my back, be sure I'll make him pay. You might act like a cheap 304, but your services will come with a steep price tag. We shared as his mother-in-law. Everyone surprised that he had done well at his job and had willingly accepted a promotion, which included a transfer to a new location 280 kilometers away. After some arguments with Natalie, he gave her a simple choice: accept the distance or face divorce. Reluctantly, she followed him to the new job. Now, the dragon, Natalie, remembered she had a daughter, Rebecca, and began making daily phone calls. Over time, these calls somehow caused Rebecca to act colder toward me without any clear reason. The conversations were filled with nagging about what I had done, not done, or should do, along with constant updates about how well everything was going for Natalie and Alexander. Our relationship only worsened when I told Rebecca that Alexander's main reason for moving was to escape the hostile dragon, his mother-in-law. As if one problem wasn't enough, Rebecca's feelings for me grew even colder when a new guy, also from some noble family's branch, started working at her job. Before long, Rebecca began describing him as some sort of Superman, or at least a real man. He was married to a nurse, but his wife was volunteering at a medical aid center in Tanzania, Africa, with 3 months left on her tour. The real man and his wife planned to buy a house once she returned, but for now, he was living in our town, renting a room at his wife's married sister's house. Rebecca started to wear me down when she constantly compared my actions, vocabulary, and even my clothes to the so-called real man from her job. There's no need to say who came out on top in those comparisons. Though Rebecca and I still had a physical relationship, my attempts were often met with remarks like, "Oh, again?" or "Don't you ever get enough?" If it hadn't been for our children and Rebecca's many good qualities, I would have walked away long ago. She was loyal, a good mother, an excellent cook, kept herself in great shape, and worked with me to keep the house clean and maintain a lovely garden. If it weren't for her nagging and sour remarks, she would still have been my dream wife. Rebecca exploded, screaming hysterically, "You simple scumbag! What on earth did you just say about me? How dare you call me that? You will regret it," I shouted. Before she could respond with something nasty, our 2 scared, crying children ran over. I focused on calming them down. The days after her outbursts were cold and tense. The first weekend, she took the kids to visit her parents. The following weekend, when our friends Natalie and Alexander visited, Rebecca acted like the perfect wife and was kind to me. But as soon as our guests left on Sunday, she turned to me and said, "Don't be foolish enough to expect any kindness from me." Then, on Thursday, everything fell apart. While I was at work, one of Rebecca's female coworkers called me. After introducing herself, she got straight to the point. "There's a new, charming guy at the office, and 3 of us, me, your wife, and another single woman, have been trying to win his attention. We begged your wife to back off since she's married to a good man like you, but she wouldn't listen. He refused to listen to us and is now proudly bragging about winning the competition and meeting him at a motel tomorrow after lunch." I thanked her for the information and asked her to keep the call a secret so I could handle the situation at home. After work, I kept an eye on Rebecca and noticed she seemed a bit happier than usual, which only made me more suspicious. I started thinking about what an old sergeant once told me during my Army days. He admired the Apache warriors for their surprise tactics: strike quickly and then vanish. Since I had no experience with street fighting, I realized my best chance was to adopt a similar strategy. Rebecca had previously bragged to me about her lover being a skilled martial artist with a black belt, so I knew the element of surprise was crucial. Pepper spray would have been ideal, but it's banned and unavailable in this country. So I came up with a simple alternative: a small plastic bottle filled with shampoo and water. After testing it painfully in my own eyes, I decided it would work well enough. The sergeant also talked about how the silent arrows of the Apache, launched from hidden ambushes, struck fear into their enemies during the frontier wars. While I obviously couldn't use arrows against Rebecca's lover, the idea inspired me to get creative in my workshop in the basement. Use the closest thing available, a dart. By soldering 3 1 cm long pieces of sewing needles at an angle around the tip, I created a barbed dart that would hopefully be hard to remove from soft tissue without surgery. I wasn't about to test it on myself, but after some thought, I came up with a simple plan that didn't require any fancy equipment. The plan was straightforward. Give Rebecca the divorce papers and use the dart to make sure her lover had no interest in her for a while. Blinding him for a few seconds would give me enough time to jab the dart into his backside. I doubted he'd want to continue his affair with my wife while dealing with that injury. The next morning, Rebecca wore a sexy dress, but I acted as though nothing was unusual and made no comments. We both behaved as we normally would on a Friday morning. At work, I arranged to swap cars for the day with my friend and coworker Eric. I often swapped cars with my coworker Eric when he needed my Volvo V70 instead of his smaller Peugeot 307. That morning, I went to the courthouse to get divorce papers and filled one out at my office. After some searching, I managed to contact the main office of the aid organization in Tanzania and got the email address of Rebecca's lover's wife. At lunchtime, I drove to Rebecca's workplace and saw that both her car and her lover's car were still in the parking lot. It was clear they had gone to the nearby restaurant for lunch before heading to the motel. I grabbed a couple of hot dogs and waited at the motel for them. As expected, the two lovers arrived, and everything went according to my plan. My time in the army hadn't been wasted after all, and I felt a strange sense of gratitude for the lessons from my old sergeant. Around 3:30 p.m., my home phone rang. It was the same female co-worker who had warned me the day before. She asked, "Did you go to the motel today? Did you see what you expected?" "Thanks for calling," I replied. "Yes, I went there, but your co-workers weren't exactly happy to see me. I tried to brighten my wife's day by handing her some divorce papers, but that didn't go over well. Her lover even threatened to hit me, so I had to defend myself. Her lover ended up with some damage to his backside, and I assumed my wife had taken him to the hospital. It didn't seem like much of a romantic date, at least not in my opinion." The woman on the phone asked, "Is that really true?" "Yes, it is," I replied. "I have no reason to lie to you. My wife isn't home yet, but you can call her cell phone and ask her yourself. Just keep in mind, I can't guarantee she'll tell you the whole truth." The caller, whoever she was, thanked me and asked for Rebecca's number, which I gave her. Hopefully, they had an interesting conversation. After that, I sent an email to the lover's wife in Africa, explaining the entire situation. By 4 o'clock, Rebecca was back home, and it was obvious she was furious. She glared at me and said, "We need to talk. Right now." "No problem," I replied calmly. "Your lover boy got exactly what you wanted, Rebecca. But you must be insane if you thought I'd sit back and take the humiliation you and your so-called real man planned for me. No way. I'll fight for my pride," I said firmly. Rebecca fired back. "He didn't even hurt you, but you hurt him so badly I had to take him to the emergency room. You'll pay for that, for sure. Actually, we're splitting the cost, 4 adults and 2 kids, for what you and that creep caused." I smirked. Do you really think his wife in Africa is happy after receiving the email I sent, explaining what her shameless husband and you have been up to? Now she knows the truth about the man she married and trusted. Rebecca looked furious. "Did you really do something so nasty to his innocent wife?" "Well, threatening me with divorce was pretty nasty, don't you think?" I replied calmly. "I didn't threaten you," she said. "Sign the divorce papers, Rebecca, and in 6 months, you'll have fair terms to be a free woman. If you refuse and go to a lawyer, you'll spend a lot more money and still end up with the same result," I explained. Rebecca started sobbing. "Oh my God, are you really serious? Please, listen to me. I haven't done anything wrong." "Yes, you have," I said. "You let your mother's ridiculous vendetta against me turn you into a nagging witch. You fell for a co-worker you think is better than me in every way. You even competed with two single women for his attention, and when you won, you left work early to meet him at a motel. That's cheating, Rebecca, and you know my views on cheating. There are consequences for that. She sobbed harder. I didn't cheat on you, not today or ever. You're the only man I love. What about our children? Don't they matter to you? Our children are the only reason I didn't kick you out long ago. I've had enough of you and your mother constantly pointing out how worthless I am. And now you've humiliated me by chasing after some married creep you call a real man. I'm done, I replied. Eventually, Rebecca realized the game was over, and we began negotiating the divorce. She signed the papers after I agreed that we'd both stay in the house and wouldn't date anyone else for the 6 months before the divorce was finalized. Strangely, 6 weeks after all this happened, Rebecca seemed to change. She turned into a completely different person, polite, helpful, and suddenly behaving like a good wife. We started spending more time together than we had in months, though we no longer shared a bedroom. Honestly, I didn't miss those half-hearted mercy quickies she used to give me. Rebecca kept insisting she never actually slept with her real man. Apparently, their motel meeting was supposed to be the start of their relationship, with some casual sex here and there. But his wife demanded that he come to Tanzania and work for free at the aid camp until her contract expired. He agreed, trying to save his marriage. She later emailed me, saying he was doing well. She had forgiven him, and she even asked me to forgive Rebecca. I don't know if I can. We still have about 20 weeks left before the divorce is finalized, so there's time to think. For now, I'll watch and see if Rebecca is serious about this good wife campaign of hers. Who knows how long she'll keep it up, or if the dragon in her will resurface.